experiencing a few technical difficulties, and I need to still mute my computer. First item of business will be requests for bill introductions. Representative Mason.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to request the introduction of 21 RS 1218, and that in essence is the House version of tax reform, including decoupling and other pieces.
Very good. Committee questions? Any objection? Seeing none, the request is approved. Any further bill introductions? Seeing none. Yes, we have one online. Jennifer Day, can you hear us? Representative Day?
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yes, loud and clear. Go ahead.
Okay, I have a bill intro for 21 RS 1044. That's the Marketplace Facilitator bill that's coming in from the Governor's Tax Council.
Thank you. We've got some chuckles in the committee. Committee, any questions? Any objection to the introduction? Seeing none, the request is approved. Any further bill introductions? Seeing none, we will close introductions and move on to open up the hearing for House Bill 2143. And I will turn to the revisor's office for an overview, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. House Bill 2143, currently under Kansas law, there is an exemption from the sales tax owed on the manufacturer's rebates on the sales of new motor vehicles. The exemption came on several years ago. It's kind of been on. It was on for a period of time, then it was off, and then it got reinstituted back on, I believe in 2017, 2018. At that time, there was a sunset for the provision, so that way it will expire. The current exemption from having to pay sales tax on the rebates will expire July 1 of 2021. This House Bill 2143 will remove the expiration, so that way the exemption would be in effect in perpetuity from then on. With that, I'd be happy to stand for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Siebers. Committee questions for the revisor. Seeing none, we will move on to our fiscal note. Is there anyone from Department of Revenue? I see Kathleen Smith from Department of Revenue. Would you like to address the fiscal note today, please?
Yes, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. House Bill 2143 would decrease the state revenues by $4.5 million in fiscal year 2022. Of that total, the state general fund is estimated to decrease by $3.8 million. And the state highway fund is estimated to decrease by $700,000 in fiscal year 2022. With that, I would stand for questions, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Kathleen. Representative Mason.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Kathleen, we're not currently collecting this tax, correct?
That is correct, Representative. There is an exemption on the books right now for these motor vehicle rebates. It is through July 1 of 2021, or excuse me, June 30th of 2021.
It's kind of verbal gymnastics that we would be decreasing sales tax revenues. Okay, thank you.
Representative Baker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, Kathleen, as I understand it, we don't collect that right now, but it would go back on, so we would actually have an increase of $4.5 million if we let this sunset and put the sales tax on the rebates back on. Is that right?
That is correct.
And I thought the last time when we did this 3 years ago, I'm old, but my memory sometimes gets numbers right. I thought the number was closer to $8 million. Does this number vary according to the rebates the manufacturers put on these automobiles?
It does vary based upon the amount of the rebate, and that varies each year. I think back in 18, we were right around $4 million as well at that point in time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Committee, any further questions? For some reason, the chairman has his hand raised on virtual world. so I apologize. Okay. Representative Bergkamp.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't know if this is the best place to ask, but do you know how many or what the average rebate per car was, or how many transactions were accounted for per year? Just so I have a rough number, what that looks like.
I do not know. I believe that average new car sales probably in 18 and 19 was probably around 100,000. But I think maybe Don McNeely can go ahead and provide that information. When we provided our impact, we were estimating a rebate of around $1,250 to $1,500 per vehicle. But again, that does vary each year.
Committee, any further questions for Department of Revenue on the fiscal note? Seeing none, thank you, Kathleen. We will now open up the proponent testimony for House Bill 2143 and welcome to committee Don McNeely, President of the Kansas Automobile Dealers Association. Welcome to committee. Is your light on the microphone? And that microphone is really sensitive. Make sure you speak into it really close.
Again, good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I am Don McNeely, and for the last 30 years, I've had the privilege to serve as president of the Kansas Automobile Dealers Association. I do appear today on behalf of the association and the industry supporting House Bill 2143, which Adam did an excellent job explaining the bill. As some members of the committee will remember, the sales tax exemption was proposed back in 2018. The original bill of that session was Senate Bill 367, which passed the House unanimously without a sunset. The House Tax Committee had a hearing on the bill, no opponents. The hearing was towards the end of the session. Ultimately, in tax conference, the House offered Senate Bill 367 in a standalone bill with a three-year sunset. The Senate again approved it on a vote of 38-0. And on the last day of veto session in 18, the House passed this provision 111-16. This happens to be the second time that this exemption has been put on with a sunset. The first time was in 2006. I remember then Attorney General Derek Smith was that time the Senate Majority Leader. He knew I was a little upset after they put the sunset on. He says, Don, don't worry about it. There's never been an exemption that's been able to sunset. Well, it did, and it's getting ready to sunset for the second time. Prior to the COVID-19 pandemic bringing last year's session to a close, we had introduced Senate Bill 322. It did pass the Senate Tax Committee last year unanimously and was approved by the Senate on a vote of 35-2. Of course, then the plug was pulled on the session and everyone went home, and here we are today. While this issue is not new to members of the committee, it is extremely important to the consumers of Kansas as well as the dealers. It has also been very bipartisan over the years, having been introduced by members of each party. It's been introduced by the chairman of the tax committee, the ranking member of the tax committee. So again, it's not new to this building. You know, with the average selling price of a new vehicle approaching $40,000 and with the average combined sales tax rate close to 10%, the imposition of a sales tax on these rebates is extremely detrimental to new vehicle sales, especially when you consider the state of Kansas actually makes more money off the sale of vehicle than the selling dealer does. As most of you know, the industry of which I represent is a critical and essential part of this state's economy. We generate yearly close to $6 billion in annual sales, and the industry represents approximately 20% of the retail sales in the state. I may make a couple mentions on some of the questions that were raised to Kathleen. You know, in regards to the actual fiscal note, it's hard to put your hands around it because these rebates come and go. They're provided to get inventory off the dealer's lots. They're essentially, it's a discount. As a lot of you know, that the inventory on these dealership lots are not owned by the manufacturer. They are owned by the dealer. And a lot of times the dealer pays for the inventory before they even hit their lot. And then also, maybe you remember that sometimes they give you an option. You know, when interest rates were a little higher than they are today, you could take the rebate or you could take 0% financing. So it's been very uncertain what the actual fiscal note could be nailed down in regards to this type of proposal. I think there are other questions that may have been, but in any case, of course, we appear in support of this as we believe it's time we make this sales tax exemption permanent. And with that, I'll stand for any questions you may have.
Thank you. Representative Kelly.
Thanks very much. Couple questions. I think of living on the border like I do. What does Oklahoma and other border states do?
Oklahoma, Missouri, Nebraska, all exempt manufacturers' rebates from sales tax. When we did this back in 2018, at that time, Colorado did not, but I hadn't checked on that. You know, we have very few dealers that really compete into.
Second question, if you had the choice and you chose 0% interest, would that be taxed, sales tax on that?
No, of course, that's just based upon the retail sales price, transaction price of the vehicle. No, that would not have any impact on it.
Okay, so your savings on that could be as much or greater than
Could be,
rebate.
yes. Very true, especially if you had negative equity you wanted to throw in and finance along with it.
Representative Baker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Don.
You bet.
Electric cars and manufacturers that sell them direct, that's a problem. So, and if they do rebates, we may not know about that until after, because we don't know the whole transaction of that because it's done with a company that's from California or whatever.
Very possible.
I guess it kind of ties into the rebates also. How's the Automobile Association, how are we going to shut that off in the future? Or are we just going to allow all the manufacturers to sell direct and have Carvana drop it off at my door?
Well, of course, you know, you talk about Carvana, Vroom, et cetera. I mean, you know, they're a dealership. I mean, they are. And our members can provide the same service as those entities can. You know, if you want to, it's not unusual, especially we've had to adapt with the pandemic in regards to changing our business operations, electronic transactions. People can buy a car online just like.
But they're not the manufacturer.
No.
They're a dealer.
Right.
I'm talking about a manufacturer like a Tesla or General Motors as they, yeah, exactly. We're circumventing the dealer network. I mean, what's the answer on that going forward? Because that also, you know, has a consequence on those rebates.
Right, and you know, that's being debated in state houses all across the country.
Can we keep them out?
Well, we'd like to think that there's reasons that you would want to keep them out in regards to eliminating a vertical monopoly. That's a decision for the members of this body.
Amendment? I think we'll bring an amendment then.
I'd like to see this bill stay clean.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Representative Corbett.
Thank you. I saw somewhere that Kansas ranks 43rd out of 50th for new car sales just for the taxes that's on a vehicle in Kansas. So it's tough on Kansas just to do that number. And I think that most people don't realize this, but I think your industry collecting sales taxes, maybe 20% of the sales tax collected in the state to help them already. It's a pretty big number. I can't remember what it was.
No, I represent you, as you know, I've talked several times, and you're spot on. I mean, you know, we've got a property tax problem on vehicles in the state of Kansas. There's no doubt about that. You know, back in the mid-'90s, with the help of Anthony Hensley, Governor Bill Graves, a very bipartisan initiative was put forth to reform property tax on vehicles. We essentially took the state out of the property tax business. And with that, new vehicle registrations in Kansas increased dramatically. Since I've been here, since 1991, the highest new vehicle registrations I think the state ever experienced was immediately following the enactment implementation of the property tax reform. And we were up to 136,000 new vehicle registrations, I believe, Representative. I'll double check it for you, but it was in that neighborhood. In 2019, we're now down to 97,000 new vehicle registrations a year, annual new vehicle registrations. Of course, 20 is going to be worse. I don't know what it's going to be statewide, but I saw figures last week that new vehicle registrations in Metro Kansas City fell 12% last year. So if that figure holds statewide for fiscal year 20, new vehicle registrations in Kansas will be below 90,000 vehicles. And when you think about, the property tax, the number of local units that have continued to increase, the local sales tax rates, we are getting very close to a combined average sales tax rate in the state of 10%, and you've got an average new vehicle price of $40,000. That's a pretty good load. And, over the years, I've had discussions with legislators. They said, well, Don, I don't buy new cars. And I understand that. I wasn't always able to buy a new car either. But somebody's got to buy new cars in order for other people to buy used cars. The manufacturers don't make used cars. So someone's going to have to experience that depreciation.
Committee, any further questions? Representative Potter?
Thank you, Chairman. So I actually sold cars for a while in college. And one of the benefits of these rebates is that the salesperson still gets the full commission. Mm-hmm. And that impact and the increase in sales during the time of the rebates is extremely beneficial, not as for income tax as well, and right. Other things. So I just wanted to state my support of this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman.
Well, and Representative, being from the industry, the average net profit on a new vehicle is less than 2%. And a lot of new car dealers, their new car sales department operates at a loss. A lot of the revenue is generated out of the service department and the sale of used vehicles.
Representative Helgerson, I apologize. I missed you on the list, so please accept my apologies.
No problem at all. The home builders, not the home builders, the realtors came in and asked us for a piece of legislation earlier this year, similar to the one they had last year. I'll speak up a little bit.
You're right.
And that was they wanted a $3,000 tax credit for all new homes, first home buyers. Did you ever hear about that?
No, I didn't.
How'd you feel if we did a first-time car buyer sales tax exemption?
Well, Representative, that's an interesting concept. I have to think about that. There's, I think South Carolina say they only tax the vehicle once.
Sounds like something we could talk about.
Thank you.
Committee, any further questions? Seeing none in the room and none online. Don, thank you very much.
Pleasure. I enjoyed it today. Thank you very much, sir.
Committee, I show no further proponents. Is there anyone else wishing to appear as a proponent on House Bill 2143? Seeing none, we will close the proponent portion of the testimony. I show no opponents or neutral. Is there anyone wishing to appear as an opponent or neutral testimony on House Bill 2143? Seeing none, we will close the hearing on 2143. Committee, after the last 2 days, this should be a breath of fresh air. That concludes our business for the day. Is there anything that needs to come before the committee? Seeing nothing, have a good weekend. We are adjourned.